Thank you for coming. My name is César, and this is my colleague David.
Hi.
And this is our talk, The Smart Home You Didn't Know You Had. So let's jump in. How smart is your home? Well, it's quite common these days. You might have things like smart bulbs. Philips Hue is kind of considered the gold standard. It's a bit expensive, but it's really good. If you have not tried, IKEA makes really good light. I was quite surprised, but they do, and they're a lot cheaper. You might have a smart TV at home. That's quite common these days as well. You might have smart speakers. I have Sonos, it's quite good as well. You might have a voice assistant like Alexa, the Apple one, or the Google Assistant. You might have a home smart heating system like Nest, Tado, or Hive. You might even have a smart fridge. You know, these days, everything is smart. So there's a lot of like smartness in your home, but they don't really talk to each other. And this is kind of where Home Assistant comes in. So Home Assistant is an open source project that kind of allows you to pull everything that runs in your home that is smart, and it can be used to kind of get all the data in one place and also all the controls in one place. So this is kind of what we want to talk about today. So just the format of the talk, I will quickly show you how to get started with Home Assistant, and you will see that it's pretty simple. Then David will take you through all the sort of like crazy devices that you can connect to it. And then we have a kind of like a few of the use cases, hopefully fun, potentially useless, that we have at home. You will be the judge of that. And kind of the goal is to inspire you, and maybe tomorrow or tonight you go home and, oh, actually, I could automate this at home. So before, a little bit more about Home Assistant. So as I said, it's open source. It runs locally, so that's quite cool, because there are a lot of integrations that don't need any cloud dependency. So even if internet is down or everything, it can still run. And when it's local, it means you can collect a lot more data. Like for instance, so I've got solar panels at home, and I've got a power meter on them, and that runs locally, so I can get power measurement every second. And there's also an API integration that gives me maybe every 5 minutes. So when you can use the local one, it's always much better, and it also discovers everything on its own, so it's pretty cool. There are loads of integration about Home Assistant. Pretty much everything these days that is smart in your home, it will work on Home Assistant, either officially out of the box, or probably someone in the community would have written that. And you can do a lot of synergies, and that's really the whole point of this talk, is trying to kind of like, here, the limit is your imagination of if everything that is smart in your home can talk to each other, then you can like really come up with some, fun scenarios, and hopefully we'll be able to show you that. So you have this concept of automations. So automation is kind of like a little programming language with building blocks. It's typical you have a trigger, a condition, and an action. And just using this kind of like framework, you can do a lot of interesting things. You've got the concept of scenes. Scenes allow you to, let's say in a room, you can put all the lights in one specific setup, and you can save that as a scene. And then if you say scene activate, it will kind of put all the devices, here the lights, in the setup that you configure them. So how do you install Home Assistant? One of the things I love about Home Assistant is the documentation. It's really amazing. So when I got started into home automation, about 2 years ago, I knew nothing about it, and I was really mind blown by the documentation, and now it's even better. It's really, really, really simple to get going. You don't need much. And yeah, documentation is really, really a plus. So if you want to grab that link for later and have a look, please do. So roughly speaking, there are 3 ways you can get Home Assistant running. So I will go from the easiest to the more advanced. The easiest is the plug and play. So you can buy on Home Assistant website the green or the yellow one, and it comes to your home, you put the power, you put the network, and you're done. That is like really, really simple. The second simplest one, if you've got a spare Raspberry Pi, where you will need a 3B plus or above, it's when you use the Raspberry Pi imager, it will be out of the box. You can have a Home Assistant OS, and it will give you the same result as the green or yellow above, and it will just kind of run on its own. And if, like David, when you kind of got into that, you already had like a home server running a bunch of stuff, maybe Docker is the best option for you. But that requires a little bit of setup, and with Docker, you get a bit less things compared to the Home Assistant OS. Just to show you, that's a picture of the Home Assistant green. And again, I don't know if you can see, but on the Raspberry Pi imager, you will have like a Home Assistant out of the box that will flash a Raspberry Pi, and it will just work. So then you've done that. What else? Well, once you've plugged the power, you can basically go to homeassistant.localport 1823, and you might see something like that. And here it takes about 20 minutes to kind of bootstrap itself. And then when it's ready, you just create a username. And then it's kind of what really blew my mind when I got there is that immediately it says, hey, I found this stuff in your home. And when I started, I didn't have smart sockets, I didn't have smart light, but it found my router, it found my Wi-Fi mesh, it found my heating system. And this is kind of the name of the talk, is that even without literally almost zero configuration, it says, hey, I found all this stuff in your home. And it works really well. And then to get the stuff running, you just click, a few clicks, and then it's done. And just to show you, this is like the default dashboard that you get. So this is a picture from mine. And to get this, all I had to do was, for each of the integration says which room it is, and then that's it. And here is kind of showing you some of these things are metrics, some of these things are control. So it's kind of a bit busy. So what you would typically do after that is maybe you would create your own dashboard, you will split them in different areas, but just to kind of show you, out of the box, you kind of get a lot of stuff. Over to you, David.
So yeah, this is where I cover some of the devices that you might already have in your home, just so you get a bit of inspiration, and how you can connect them, because not everything is available on your Wi-Fi. There's a lot to cover here, and I'm not going to cover all of them. I've taken a little screenshot of this. These are just the supported integrations. I got run out of space creating screenshots, so even that one on the other side doesn't include all of them. And that's because there's 2,700 at the moment built into Home Assistant, and there's even more through what they call hacks, which is a way to have community-supported plugins. So there's a lot that you can plug in. So we're going to start with the ones that you're probably going to use first. This one, cloud integrations. These don't require any additional hardware, just your working internet. If you're using like the IKEA devices with their hub and it's working in your app, this one will use the API to talk to their servers and all that sort of thing. You'll find a lot of the cheap eBay smart sockets, Tuya or something like that, is the Chinese producer that does it. I've put a little star next to the picture of a car logo. If you use the APIs to integrate your car, be very careful about getting a flat 12-volt battery, because if you poll it every 5 minutes, it just spends all its time powering itself up to tell you what its battery level's like, or where it is. And if it's sitting on your driveway, the battery will be dead by the end of the day. So yeah, these are some of the ones that you integrate via the cloud, but of course that stops working when your internet stops working, and may stop working when the supplier goes out of business. But there's those. More cloud ones, these aren't actually devices, but there's useful information. I've got bin collections, water levels from the Environment Agency, that's really handy, current electricity prices, and bus times, that sort of thing. These are all through the cloud. So we'll move on to the local stuff. This is probably where you'd want to have most of your devices, because they're reliable and quick. So this all happens via your network, because you have to have it plugged into the network. And this might be smart sockets, light bulbs, your TV, your music system, your router, or cameras around the house. I don't really use my cameras for this. I just find it's a bit too creepy. But, oh, and my printer. I've got printer toner levels so that I can get a message on my phone when I need to put new toner in every couple of years. So yeah, that's network. So the next one is supplied by Zigbee. You might have heard of Zigbee. This is where you've got those sort of semi-smart devices, and if you get a USB dongle, you can buy a simple one, and then you can talk to, well, you can get low-powered more sockets. You can talk to your IKEA lights directly without using their hub. So I haven't got the IKEA hub. I just connected them straight to my Zigbee network. I've got my blinds. Yeah, and I've got some thermostat, some smart radiator thermostats and temperature sensors. There's all sorts of things lying around, and also similarly, the Philips Hue, you can get a direct connection via Zigbee, and it's much quicker. Zigbee can lead to you having lots and lots of devices, but that's okay, because the powered ones create a network for the low-powered ones. My network looks a lot like this, which is just a bit crazy, but it's actually quite reliable. That's one thing I really like about it. It's low power for the ones in green, but because they mesh together all of your powered devices, it all works quite nicely. So the next one, I don't use this very much, but you probably have Bluetooth built in if you've used a Raspberry Pi. Otherwise, you can use a Bluetooth dongle, or for much better signal, you can use some software on an ESP32, which is like a single-board computer, running Bluetooth proxy, which then gets gatewayed to Home Assistant. This allows you to, I think the main useful thing here is presence detection of your mobile phone, so you can tell where you are. Otherwise, if you've got a smart mug, smart toothbrush, smart meat thermometer, these all tend to be Bluetooth. Yeah, I did at one point have it so that I got an entry in Home Assistant when I filled my mug up with coffee, but you really don't need it. So slightly more useful, but using older hardware. Quite a lot of like doorbells and that sort of thing. And if you've got one of those weather sensors outside with an LCD display, basically anything that has a cheap LCD display that runs on like 1AA battery probably uses the 433 megahertz. These are quite low power, and you can detect them using an old digital video tuner. That's what I use. It's read-only, or you can get IoT bridges that bridge Ethernet to these frequencies that allow you to both send the messages and receive them. I use it pretty much for receiving temperature sensors.
Or the cars that drive next to you.
Or I can see the tire pressure of people driving past my house. It all comes up on my logs, and I also have a couple of these little smart switches, which run on really tiny batteries, and you can just like double-sided sticky tape them to the wall. Right, next one, infrared. This is one of the most recent ones I've added to my equipment for older stuff. If you're still using a video recorder, very unlikely to have an Ethernet socket on it. Much more likely to have infrared. I actually use this because my air conditioning unit that I use to keep my office warm in the winter only has an infrared remote control, and so I wanted to have it on a schedule. So I have my schedule organized through Home Assistant, and it sends infrared messages. So even if you've got old stuff that you really don't think is smart, if it's got a remote control, you can probably make it smart using either this Broadlink device, or again, you mess around with your ESP module and an infrared LED, or various other people who sell widgets to do this. And finally, for the even dumber devices that don't even have a remote control, you can get a little robot that will press a button for you. There's SwitchBot was, I think, the first one on Kickstarter that does this, but now there's a lot of AliExpress clones, and you can have it switch. If you've got your entry and exit door, you can add a massive security hole to your flat by having someone able to shout through the letterbox, "Alexa, open the door." Or you can have your coffee machine turned on for you, or your light switch. I don't use this, but it's how you deal with the next level stuff. Or you can start building your own devices on a single board computer. This is my sous vide temperature-controlled cooker. You probably want to put a bit more isolation on your mains power.
Oh, come on, there's at least 5 centimeters.
Well, I just don't touch it, or put duct tape over the live pins here. But so you could have that. I've got an RFID music player. I've got some temperature sensors. Or you could, if you've got an old-fashioned water meter, you can add a reader for that. So I think that's the end of mine, and we're on to you.
Thank you. So I think now is the part where you get to be the judge to decide if what we're doing is groundbreaking or completely useless. But you decide. So imagine you have a living room and you might have a bunch of smart lights. So it's quite easy to buy a motion sensor. So you can buy a Bluetooth one or a Zigbee one, and obviously you connect everything to a Home Assistant. And the idea is, okay, wouldn't it be nice if I walk into the living room and the lights turn on? Yeah, great, you can do that. You can use an automation, and actually, some automations, you can run them yourself, or you can get blueprints. And so this is a blueprint called motion-activated light switch. And so all you have to give it is the entity that is this motion sensor. Then you have to say which switch you want to turn on and off. And then you give it a timer. So you walk into the room, the lights turn on, and if there is no motion for 2 minutes, it turns off the light. It works really well. But, I mean, my living room, we have the TV, so you go into the living room, turns on, you sit on the sofa. You don't really move when you watch a movie. So you watch the movie, and suddenly the lights turn off. So my wife was not so impressed with that. So I said, okay, how can I improve on that? Well, I kind of realized that at home, so I have a smart speaker, Sonos, and that's what I use for my TV and also for listening to music. So I know that if the speakers are on, I know that I am in the room and I shouldn't be turning the lights. And so this is kind of what I did. I kind of recreated the automation. And in the automation, there is a step that says sleep 2 minutes and then turn off the lights. And here I just added a kind of Boolean. The first one inside says check that the living room is playing, and then I use a not block above that. So if the living room is playing, it's going to stop and it's not going to trigger the turn off. So it kind of works pretty well. It's not perfect, but it works relatively well. The next one is my hot water system. So I have a gas boiler, I have Tado on that, and I have a hot water tank. I have a Shelly controller with a temperature sensor that is not in the water, it's pressurized, but it's kind of touching the coil, so it gives me kind of a good idea of how much hot water I have. And typically, we take showers in the evening, so there's an automation that runs at 4 p.m., let's say, and if the hot water is below a certain threshold, it will ask the TADO to kind of start the gas and heat the water. About once a week, we tend to work out at home in the morning. So when we do it in the morning, we kind of want to make sure that we have hot water for a shower afterwards. So I was thinking, okay, I mean, I could press a button and do it, but you know, I could automate it, right? So I said, okay, how can I automate it? Well, it turns out that when we do a workout, we do this in kind of like the kitchen/living room, and we listen to music. So I thought, okay, that could be my trigger. So that's exactly what I did. I created this automation. So at the top, I kind of remember it's a trigger condition action. So the first one is, unfortunately for the Sonos system, you have two states. You have, when it's not playing, you have paused or you have idle. So here I have like a double trigger, either when I go from pause to playing or from idle to playing, that's my trigger. Then I check that it's before 9, because I don't necessarily want to start my hot water every time I listen to music. I also check that I'm at home, and I check that the hot water is below the threshold that I define, and if it all matches, then I start the hot water. So it means that I don't have to worry about it. It's life-changing, really. Now you're wondering how you do this without the system. So this is a picture of my cellar. I have food, I have wine, because I'm French. And in the summer, it tends to get quite humid, so I put a dehumidifier inside, and I kind of said, okay, how can I automate this a little bit? So I put the dehumidifier into continuous mode, so if there is power, it will run. And so I plugged that to a smart socket, and I also added the humidity sensor. And I was thinking, okay, how can now I could use that. I could use Home Assistant to kind of drive when I want the dehumidifier to run. And so, for instance, I could say, I don't want my cellar to go above 60% humidity, so if it's above that, run the dehumidifier, otherwise stop it. And you can actually do that. So apologies, it's a little bit small, but you can create something called a threshold. And here I put 60 as the upper limit, which means that if the value that you're tracking, so in this case is the humidity of the cellar, if it's above 60, the threshold will be on. If it's below, it will be off. And you can use that to drive the plug. This kind of work well, but then basically it would be 60, turn on, 59, turn off, 60, turn on, and kind of like it will be turning on and off. So you can define here the hysteresis parameter, which means that now it will have two thresholds. So it will turn on when it's 60 plus 3.5, and it will turn off when it's 60 minus 3.5. So that's my threshold. We can see here again, sorry, it's a bit small, but we can see kind of the threshold turning on and off because it controls the dehumidifier. And this is kind of the automation. So at the trigger is my threshold is changing, and then I just do a if then, and if the threshold is on, turn on the socket. If it's off, turn off the socket. So that works really well. The thing with this dehumidifier is that they have a water tank. And so when the water tank is full, the machine is still on, but it basically stops. It kind of makes a little beep that you can't really hear anywhere if you're not in the cellar at the moment, and then it stops running. So I was like, okay, how can I be notified when it's happened? So most smart socket, they actually can monitor power. And so when the tank is full, the compressor stops. So the thing is still on, but it's only the electronics running. So it kind of draws only about 5 watts, whereas when the compressor is running, it's about 150 to 200 watts. So I said, okay, I can do that. So here is the automation. I said when the dehumidifier power is below 10 watts, but the switch is on, then what I do is I flip a Boolean flag that tells me the tank is full, and then I send a push notification to my phone through the the Home Assistant iOS app, and it works really well. And then I have another automation that when I just come, I go on the cellar, I empty the water tank, put it back on, and then I have another one that says if the power is more than 10, clear the flag. So that's it. Yeah, a few things you can do as well. So if you kind of want to monitor your energy, so at home I have solar panels, so I have power meters on that, and you kind of, this sort of things you get out of the box. All you have to do and say, here is the entity that measures the consumption of, production of solar power. I have the same for main, consume and return. You can also hear the gas that comes from my provider API, which is Octopus Energy. And like David mentioned at the beginning, you can also get the prices. So kind of like it will compute all the cost of your energy, and you can be per day, you can per month, per year, you can compare. You can actually do quite a lot of things with very, very little effort. And yeah, a small thing that I've started playing with recently is that, so if you have iOS and if you have an Apple Watch, you can actually create widgets that are driven by Home Assistant. So here, the top left corner of my watch is the power of my solar panel, and the top right corner is the hot water temperature. So I can say, can I have a bath? Yes, I can. So yeah, so the refresh rate is not amazing. It's like 4 or 5 times an hour, so you're not going to get necessarily the latest value, but and pretty much you can put anything you want in that. So kind of, again, the limit is your creativity.
Right, so this is one of the integrations that I did. This was after a bit of an accident that we had in the past. So I've now got my freezer on a power monitoring smart socket, and I've got a Home Assistant rule that says, if the freezer doesn't consume any power for 3 hours, then let me know, basically. Because either, well, there's something wrong with the freezer is basically the answer. Your freezers tend to turn on and off every 45 minutes. And normally, this is actually triggered by the power socket being turned off at the wall, or the circuit is on tripping. But at that point, we get no data rather than a power consumption of 0. But again, still the alert triggers, and I get an alert. The other gadget that I've built, I had an LCD display, and I've got a lot of these single-board computers. So I've built something in our kitchen that shows the time and location of the next bus. I'm going to try and use this. You pointed at this. Right, okay, there we go. So as you can see, the next bus to Oxford is in 10 minutes, and the next bus to Abingdon is in 26 minutes, and it's currently in Oxford town centre. This is what it displays. It also cycles between that and the whether or not you should put the recycling bin or the rubbish bin out this week. And for the run-up to our wedding, it was the number of days to our wedding. And soon it's going to start triggering the next anniversary. So there we go. Yeah, the other one is my daughter has issues about she's not tall enough to reach all the switches, but she doesn't like going into a darkened room. So I've added extra switches. These are just random. These ones are Zigbee switches. I've also got some of the radio 433 megahertz ones around the house, and she can press those to turn on the lights, even though and they just make they don't stop the existing switches from working. They just have an extra control onto the lights, particularly with the IKEA lights that we've got. So this is great. Accessibility reasons. And then we've got a couple of tips about using it. So there's a lot of ways of extending Home Assistant. As it comes out the box, it's pretty good, but then we have integrations, which are the things that you can use, or you can have add-ons, which are like additional applications, but you can only do that if you've used the Home Assistant operating system. So if you've got the Home Assistant Green, or you've used the Raspberry Pi image. And then there's also hacks, which basically gets code from GitHub. So it's easier to use the Home Assistant OS installation if you've got spare hardware. Otherwise, just use Docker, but then you have to, if you want to install additional things like databases, you have to do that yourself using Docker. If you are using the add-ons, the Hasio Google Drive backup add-on is really useful. It's like schedules automatic backups and makes moving between hardware really easy because you just say, yeah, restore it, sort it. Tailscale is a super useful add-on because Home Assistant is running in your house and you're not always in your house. You can pay for a subscription from the people who write it, which basically proxies everything through their cloud, or you can use Tailscale, which is a magic VPN thingy that allows you to VPN to your house really easily.
Peer-to-peer VPN, yeah.
Peer-to-peer VPN, there you go. And this is the link for Tailscale, and this is the Google Drive backup add-on.
Yeah, and just maybe one thing about the Google backup. So recently I was running on a Raspberry Pi 3B Plus, and I wanted to upgrade, and it was so easy. Basically, just do a backup. You remove the old Raspberry Pi, you start the new one, fresh flash. You put you select the backup, and it was exactly in the same state. Everything was like so smooth. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah. But you already have your own backup system, so yeah.
Yeah, I didn't do that because instead I just trigger using the internal triggers a backup. It writes to a tar file, and my server's already being backed up to the cloud. So that's that. Is this one our last slide?
Yeah, I think it is the last slide.
That was our last slide. Yeah. This is the advantages of doing it via their operating system. As I said, as César said, the documentation is really good.
Yeah.
So let's go back to the tips page. And we've got, 5 or 6 minutes. Has anyone got any questions? Yeah, hi. So the question is, how well can you use it with Apple products, or that sort of thing? I don't know off the top of my head. I'm not really an Apple house.
I mean, so what sort of Apple product do you mean? Like the... So that's like super easy. So the Home Assistant runs like a UI, like the screenshot that was in the beginning, and you have an app for phones, and that's kind of that plus some integration. So the iOS app gives you the push notification, it gives you the watch integration. It's like super easy. It's really, really easy.
Yeah. So there's stuff that's available only through Apple's Home. So there's definitely a HomeKit integration, which gets you quite a lot of it. So that will probably use the Apple API to access those.
What you can do is you can bring Apple stuff into Home Assistant, or you can have Home Assistant stuff into HomeKit.
So it doesn't stop you from using it yourself. Does it have location-based automations? Yes. So you can. That you probably want to be running the app and have the app able to connect home. But yes, you can define people, or the way I do the bus locations actually is the buses are people in Home Assistant. Those locations I get from the bus company's API, and you can then have ring fences, and you can have triggers when things enter and leave the ring fenced areas. You can, and you can also have it for like when I have left work and am traveling in the direction of home, and I am 20 minutes away by estimation or sorts of thing, you can do that sort of thing. I've not done it myself because I think that sort of thing's a bit freaky. But then people have also done it to automatically open their garage door when they drive into their driveway. So you could do, location can be done in many, many ways. You can do GPS on your phone, you could do Bluetooth locations, you could just have it enter and leaving your Wi-Fi. If you've got what's it called? The UBT Unify routers. Their API automatically comes in, and it was like, you're on the Wi-Fi, therefore you're home. So it deals with that sort of thing as well, even if you're not running the app.
But when you run the Home Assistant app, it will automatically create a user for you, and it has also, you can expose your steps, your battery level, your position, all the things like that are kind of out of the box from your device. There's some really cool stuff like that. There's a lot of sensors. If you like looking at sensors, this is great fun. And maybe one thing, because we didn't really talk a lot about like things like Alexa and like voice assistant. That's because we're not really into it. But there is a huge integration that you can do. You can control a lot of things, but because we're not that into it.
And they've had a big push over the last year of having their own offline voice control as well. So you don't have to be sending your voice to Google and all that sort of thing. So if you're not using an Alexa device, you could be using an ESP32 connected to one of these, and they have actually got that working. Right. Okay, we probably have time for 2 more.
Martin?
So, quickly look on your presentation, like for Home Assistant, you can install like third-party integrations, project on GitHub. How? Because I was looking onto my heating system thermostat, what was like the integrated battery part. How do you know if there is like some review process? That kind of like the thing. How much do you think I can trust?
Okay. So questions about trusting third-party things. Certainly, all the Home Assistant integrations that are built in, I think you can. They've been reviewed quite well. Anything in hacks, it literally is just a GitHub repository that downloads Python. That then
hacks means the Home Assistant community store, by the way.
And it is just a GitHub repo that links to other GitHub repos. So it doesn't get a lot of review. But the community has a lot of people's comments, so you can ask.
And don't you think how difficult would be write my own integration?
Writing your own integration and the difficulty. I've written my own one that got the bus timetables for my local thing. It was about 20 lines of Python, a lot of it copy and pasted.
Hard
you could probably get an AI to write it in about 20 minutes. Okay, we've got 1 minute.
There was one more question here.
Yeah, okay. So this is about alternative ways of finding out whether you're in the home. You've used a Zigbee like fob that work through SmartThings. So SmartThings is the app from Tuya, who is like the big Chinese manufacturer. Well, I use the Wi-Fi one. It's not 100% accurate, but because when my phone goes off the Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
But that's all I've done. Sorry. Right, I
Yeah,
think that's it.
Yeah, for me, because I've got multiple access points, and I think it detects, it is able to say on which, at least on my phone, it's able to tell me where I am, and actually even other devices, it kind of knows. But yeah, for me as well, I've not played too much with. No, so it's like, because I've got multiple access points, Wi-Fi access points, so it kind of knows, and this has a home assistant integration. I use Devolo, and so it kind of knows, there's let's say one indication one in the living room. If you're connected to the living room one, it will know that my device is, because for MAC addresses, it will know that I'm connected to this one.
Okay, cool.
All
Right,
right,
thank you very
thank
much.
you.
Cheers.